coaching. Kunoa coaching.
Hi everybody and welcome to the Kuno podcast today. We've got Klaude with us. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So we've been talking and laughing for the last half an hour, which is why I've got tears running down my face. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us. So do you want to just kind of give our listeners a bit of background as to who you are and how you got where you are?
Well, my name is Klaude Walters, and I'm I'll say that I'm a creative, and I have always been a writer. I began writing songs and lyrics and poetry since the tender age of 5, actually. Before I even knew what writing was, I was already kind of piecing things together in my head in a very creative way. And it's helped me see the world in a more colorful way as well. I began writing music in my 20s, and then I started doing music myself, writing for other artists all over the world, songwriting. And then I came around to about a year ago. I've been wanting to write a book for a very long time. But I think it's one of those, we all have these little mental bucket lists of items that keep us going and that keep us moving forward. And sometimes the ones that are really at the top of the list are hard to do because you feel like, well, if I do it and I'm disappointed, then that's one big dream that I don't have anymore to kind of guide me through. And that was definitely the one. And of course, you're afraid of failure, and you're afraid of, oh, what are people going to say, or what are they going to think? And then you have this fraud thing going on in your head, going like, who do you think you are doing this? Blah blah blah. But knowing that I had years and years and years of successful songwriting and music out there, I thought, well, that's what I thought about myself when I was trying to write music. And I was in the studio once recording, and I guess the producer felt my uneasiness and my doubts. And he came in and he goes, you have to own this. If you don't own this, you'll never be whatever you want to be. So it doesn't matter what it is, but if you don't own it, if you don't take ownership of it, you'll always be doubtful. And the minute that you own it, then it's almost like you're sitting in it and you're like, okay, now I'm this. It's like switching something on. And I think I did the same thing with this book, and I became an author, and all of a sudden people actually reacted in a really positive way and started sending me messages, and it was just, it was very organic. And I wanted the first book to be like, I have a bunch of books in my head right now, but a lot of them are stories and they're fiction. But this book, Suicide Kills, this book, I wanted the first book to be more revealing of who I was as a person, so that if I did end up writing a whole bunch of books, people would always be able to go back to the first one and see who this author was all about and why they were writing what they were writing. So, and it was also an homage, a tribute to my brother who passed away by suicide. And I didn't want his memory to fade. And this was my way of maybe eternalizing his memory into this book. And so there was many reasons, and I wanted to help people, and I wanted to create something that was all of me: the teacher, the songwriter, the singer, the performer, the artist, the author. So that's why I created the book and the album to go with the book, to act like a soundtrack, like a movie, so that when you're reading the scene or the story, you have the actual song that goes with that chapter, and it kind of gives a tone to the story as well as the emotion. And then I wanted to create that online course that would deepen your experience. And if you really wanted yourself to do the work and to decondition yourself of all the things that you've accumulated over time, then you could do the course along with the book. And it just kind of like organically came together, and it became a really beautiful transformational type product, I would say. And that's what led me here. That's speaking with you and a whole bunch of people out there that have been kind enough to give me some time.
Would you be able to talk us a bit more through kind of the themes within the book and what kind of things happen in the book?
Okay, well, there's a lot. It's funny because the book is more about the subtitle, which is Powerless to Powerful, than the actual title, Suicide Kills. And the reason why I actually put that title was that I wanted people to realize that suicide kills the person. Of course it does. You know, that was the kind of moment. But it also kills a lot of the ecosystem around that individual. You know, the families, the friendships, the communities around them. It's shocking. And then it has a ripple effect, like throwing a rock in a river. And all that ripple goes on for many, many, many years. So I wanted to point that out. And that's why I wrote about the suicide, but I also wrote about that ripple effect, because a lot of that ripple effect happened and created different mental problems in my life, which created other issues. So the book is kind of written in a diarized way. There's short stories of events that have happened in my life. And I chose to pick the big events, the more tragic events, because those are the ones that leave an imprint, leave a conditioning, right? And that have a very, very dire effect on your mental health. So things like cancer. I've been through cancer, and that was jarring. And then I've been through a divorce, and that was jarring. And so I've been through also, you know, when the Me Too movement came out, it was weird because I was right in the middle of writing that chapter, actually. And I've had that experience being in the corporate world for most of my life, in a financial world. I've had to deal with that, that side of things, that side of life where, you know, you are in a subordinate kind of position and you have to choose between, you know, not talking in a certain way to upset the person that's actually abusing or being abusive in his demeanor. So, but my take on it is a little different. And I've had a few women come up to me and not understand what my position was in there, because they assumed that I was going to go with what the mass media message was going to be. And I take a very different route on that. But again, at every time that I do touch on a storyline, the book is written in a way that at the beginning of the chapter, I tell you the story or the event. So it's kind of a diary entry that I tell you what happened and how it happened. And then at the end of the chapter, you have another section that's kind of a lessons learned. And that's my project management kind of side, is I always do that at the end of a project. I always step back and go, okay, what went well and what didn't go well, and how can I do this better? And so I have that reflection section that kind of pulls back and says, looks at it without any emotion and says, okay, well, this is what I learned, and this is what I learned, and this is what I'm going to do different next time. So I'm never in that victim state, which I don't believe in at all. And at the end of the chapter, I give you also a list of tools that I used. So if you do this, or if you do that, this will help you, or this will help you. And those lessons and those tools are deepened into the online course. But it has many messages. It has many themes. You know, there is the suicide of my brother. There is my attempt as well. There is a lot of different, they're all pretty, I would call, tragic type events that happen to a million people a day. So I've put them all in this book, showing that basically what you think you have no power over You absolutely do. So you cannot change what comes at you from the outside, but you certainly can change how you're going to deal with it from the inside. And that's why I titled the book Powerless to Powerful, because all of those specific events have the power to render you powerless. But if you choose to develop and to work on a limitless mindset type personality, that won't happen. You will turn anything into a powerful situation. So
This
that's
is
my
such an interesting topic because there's such a stigma around things like mental health and suicide, and I think that's not getting a lot better. And we've seen in this country recently, we had a TV presenter kill herself because of the media scrutiny and the things that were going on in her life. We've had Meghan Markle say when she was pregnant that she wanted to potentially kill herself. And the reactions to some people saying this is, well, you know, you're privileged, you know, why should you be saying this? You're just saying it because you want attention. And I think that whole stigma around thinking that people want attention when they're saying this is really harmful, because
absolutely.
if you get to a point of suicide or thinking about suicide, the pain that you're feeling inside, if you're self-harming or thinking of suicide, is so great that I don't think that anybody else could understand that level of pain that that person's actually going through to be in that situation, or that level of kind of powerlessness or lowness. So how can we kind of work around this and understand that this is, you know, part of a lot of our lives now, and suicide's touched a lot of us, and so has mental health. How can we try to destigmatize it?
I think, and this might be controversial, but since I've been on both sides of the suicide coin, I feel I have a right to express that controversy. I feel that there's two people in regards to suicide. There's the ones that don't talk about it and usually do it. And then there's the ones that talk about it to the nth degree. And they're usually people that are using it because it's trendy. It's part of the clique, or it's part of the politically correct. You know, they're following a trend. Mental health for many years was such a dark thing that people did not want to speak about it. They didn't want to acknowledge it. I wasn't certainly comfortable in talking about it. And but the minute that, and every time that, and I'll say this as well, is that it's so weird that you can go to a doctor and get all kinds of medication, all kinds of antidepressants. I mean, you could be on heavy duty drugs for the rest of your life, right? I'm not for that. I'm completely against that. I'm about realization of the problem, and then you're going to have to do the work. So you're going to have to, because me giving you a pill that says that, okay, you will not be depressed anymore. Okay, but what about what made you depressed to begin with? Why can't I talk to you about that? Why can't we work around that? Why can't we go right back to where that began and reverse engineer this thing that you've now put inside you? You know, why can't we work on that, on dissolving that? Because once we dissolve that and we give you proper tools to deal with everything that's coming at you, which will never end, it will never stop. And the you know, the every day you live, there is a struggle everywhere. And I feel like most people, governments, doctors, groups, and this will be controversial as well, because I don't believe in these groups, because all they do is you go there and you wallow in it. And I can talk to you till you're blue in the face and say, poor you, poor you, poor you, poor you. And you absorb that. And it's poor me, poor me, poor me, poor me. And that just helps you go down a darker hole. But if I tell you that you're in control, if I give you back that control and that power, and I say, okay, well, I get it. You've been through a harsh time. I get it. Life is hard. You can't control everything that's going on. It'll never happen. But let's start building you. Let's start building what you love. Let's put your brain into another type of mindset. Instead of thinking dark, let's go to the light and let's start thinking about joyful thing, what you love to do. And let's put some more time into that. Then let's start journaling and let's start doing creative things that might bring you happiness. Let's watch what you're saying. Let's watch the dialogue that you're having within yourself. Let's see what you're listening to and what you're watching and what you're reading. And let's start kind of, decomposing this, and let's build something new that you'll have control over. That's what is not being done. And if you want that kind of behavioral cognitive therapy, it'll cost you an arm and a leg, because that, my friends, is not covered by the government. Why? Because they would rather keep you medicated, because you're not a trouble. You're not thinking, you're not going independent on them, right? So I'm really not, like I said, there's two different types, and I work with the types that want to get better. The ones that want to wallow in it, and some people are addicted to this. They're addicted to the sympathy. They're addicted to that attention, which is wrong for them, but they're addicted to it like any other drugs that's not good for them. And unfortunately, if they're surrounded by people that enable that to continue, then they're just going to fall further down the rabbit hole. Whereas if there's with somebody that's constantly pushing them and constantly saying, no, this is not how you must think. This is how. And it's something that doesn't come overnight. And it's really a reconditioning. Like it's a deconditioning in a way, and then a reconditioning. So the same way that, you go and train your body after maybe a year of not doing much and eating not good stuff, and your brain is still wanting that chocolate bar and that chip and that this and that. So you have to constantly pull back and go, nope, 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 I don't want that. I don't want that. So the same way, when people start gossiping around you, you're like, oh yes, did you eat? No. Now you got to step back and go, nope, 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 don't, no. Not listening, right? I'm going to go meditate. And you have to introduce new tools into your life that you're not used to, that you think you might not believe in. And you might think, oh gosh, affirmations, mantras, like these are all things that I do every single day. I'm reconditioning and brainwashing myself back to a positive conditioning, because I'm so surrounded by negativity and toxic information and toxic conditioning on a daily basis that I have to counteract that with positive stuff. So that's what I believe people need to do right now. And unfortunately, we're very isolated right now. But to decondition and reconditioning yourself, isolation is the best thing that could happen to you. So, but it is a power of choice. And that choice to be better, to do better, to know better, do better, be better. That's my mantra. Know better and do better and be better. But you have to make that choice. It's an individualistic choice. And some people are just not willing to make that choice. I'm glad that people are talking about it more and that it's become a topic of conversation that's more ease. But at the same time, I feel the authenticity of a lot of the speakers may not be. I think it's because of a trend, that it's trendy right now to be mentally challenged. And I've been dealing with mental illness my whole life, whether it was anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, OCD, you name it. I probably, have got some sort of sense to it. And it's brought me down many dark things. But because I'm an artist, I have an outlook, I have an output to put out that darkness in a positive way, in a way, because it's artistic and I can write music about it. And I have an outlet to it where most people don't. So I think that saved my life probably many, many times. But today I don't do that anymore. Today it's more about the tools and really having an active management plan in place for myself. And that's what I want to share with people, is that you can take control, get that power back, and you start having control and start watching all the people that hang around you that are patting your back and going, oh, poor you. They'll all disappear the minute that you start getting stronger. And you'll attract different people that are also strong. And I think that is the way out of mental illness. I don't think that it's, finding the antidepressant for you. I'm always about going to the core of the problem and not band-aiding it, because at one point that medication won't work. You'll need something else, and then you'll need something else and something else. And whether you're doing drugs, whether you're drinking, whether you're doing medication, it's all a self-medicating type of way to manage your heaviness and your weight. But the minute that you start lifting that weight, the minute you start dealing with what you need to deal with, it dissolves. And it's funny because I do that with a lot of people. I take them back. I have this exercise where I take them back to that really horrible time, and I make them relive it. And they're crying and they're like angry, and they're right in it, because your brain does not know the difference between then and now. It doesn't know time. So they do it and they relive it, and it's painful. And then at the end of it, I say, okay, let's go back again. Let's do it again. And we go back and we do it many, many times. And you will notice that the story starts lightening up. The emotion starts dissolving. The critical thinking starts coming into play. And all of a sudden they say, well, at the end, when it's like 4 or 5, sometimes it's 10 times, they go like, I don't remember it that way. And I don't know why I reacted that way. And all of a sudden it's gone. So that pain is now gone. It's completely gone, because their critical mind has taken over the emotional essence of that event. And now it's just gone. So if you keep doing that and you keep taking that out of the baggage, at one point, all is left is light. You're weightless. And all of a sudden, now you've got a point to go, okay, well, now what do I do? Now where do I put all that time that I used to put into that negativity? How about creating something? How about doing a career? Now I've got power. I feel powerful, because every time you dissolve one of those, it brings confidence to the person and power back and choice back. And they feel stronger and stronger and stronger. And by the end of things, it just feels like you're in front of a different person. Their facial demeanor is different. The way they stand is different. It's a beautiful thing. And I don't think you can accomplish that through medication.
Because the kind of the temptation almost to be a victim is so strong. And I was listening to RuPaul recently, and he was saying, a huge percent of people are always victims and they just will never break out of it because it's so hard. And the temptation to wallow is strong, but also the difficulty to get out of the dark place feels so great. How can somebody, especially maybe not even, sometimes you don't even know that you've got a choice. You don't feel like you've got a choice. So how can you kind of get from the point where you're so down and low and everything feels so bad? How can you kind of just make that step just to say, I have got a choice. I don't want to be a victim, because even when you're walking away from it, the victimness pulls you back still.
Absolutely.
So how can you kind of make that step to move forward? You're listening to the Kuno podcast. If you want to ask a question to our experts, just go to kunocoaching.com and you will find the link to the podcast where you can leave us a voice message or send us an email, and we will ask your question direct to the expert. That's kunocoaching.com. Kuinua Coaching is set up to offer mentoring, coaching and courses in leadership, negotiation and soft skills. If you're interested in finding out more about what Kuinua Coaching has to offer you, you can get in touch via Facebook, Instagram, you can type Kuinua into Google, you can email us on kuinuacoaching@gmail.com or go to our website at kuinuacoaching.com. That's kuinuacoaching.com.
It's a difficult step because, and it's so weird because it's such a small step, but it's such a huge step. And I remember the moment where I chose to end my life. It wasn't a glamorous moment. It wasn't like an epiphany. It was like a switch. It was a very tiny lapse of time in my entire life where I just said, enough. And the minute I said, I'm done, I felt this weird lightness. And all of a sudden, now that I knew that the pain would be over in a certain time frame, it disappeared. Do you know what I mean? And in that moment, even though I went through it and I went through with it, when I came back, I remembered that moment and I thought to myself, how weird that it wasn't real. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like I made it real, but it wasn't real. It was just a moment. So I tell people, like, you have to have something for those moments. So, you know, like a backup plan. You have to have something of a trigger that when you do get to that point, and we all do, where like you're so close to that cliff, to just letting go and just, right? It happens. Everybody will go there. I don't care whether they say or they don't say, we all have gone to that moment where it's just, you're tilting like a machine, like I'm done. Have a plan, have something, whether it's a song, whether it's a poem, whether it's a passage in a book, whether it's a passage in a Bible, whether it is something that is so strong to you that it will snap you out of that moment, because it's just a moment. And if you can continue mindfully understanding those moments, in the book I talk about befriending your demons, not ignoring them, because they need space to live too. They'll never go away. You might as well befriend them, give them space to be and to live and to come out when they need to, and accept their presence there so that they don't do things that are scary, or they don't go out of their way to make your life a living hell. If you respect them and give them their space, I know it sounds weird that I'm talking about it like that, but if you give your emotions space to be, if you give, you know, your anger, like we're so conditioned to compress everything. You know, we're beings. We're like, animals don't do that. Watch an animal. When they hurt themselves, they'll yelp, they'll scream, and when they're angry, they'll bark. When they, you know, it's like, it almost feels like we're the only beings that are meant to compress everything and to push everything down, and we don't feel anything. There's nothing wrong with feeling. Let it go. You want to cry? Have a good cry. You know, sometimes I watch chick flicks just to get a good cry on, right? And then it's out of my system because I feel that bubble. I feel that bubble coming, and I know it's coming, and I know it's going to pop out in the weirdest times, you know, not the right time probably. So I catch it and I say, okay, I need a good cry. So I'm going to go, I'm going to have it. It's going to be out of my system, and I can go back to my jolly, joyful self. And that's what I do. And when I went for the longest time, I had this elastic band around my wrist. And if you noticed, I have this thing here, I have a tattoo on here that says breathe. And then I have another one here that says focus. These are the replacement of the bands that I used to carry around with me for these specific moments that you're talking about. Because my brain was so conditioned to go down a very negative path, I had to break that pattern of thought. The only way I could do that is to create a different trigger where my brain would go and snap back into reality. So I would have those elastic bands around my wrists and I'd snap them enough to snap myself out of whatever that funk I was at, right? And then I would read a passage of something, or I would listen to a song, or I had a plan. And I think that's what you have to have. And you have to create that plan when you're not in that moment. So all the things that you love, whether it's, I don't care, it's a candy bar, it's a movie that you really love, that really puts you into that, you know, sense of gratitude, or it's a book, or it's a poem, or it's a picture, anything that will bring you that instant connection to gratitude, love, beauty, all those beautiful emotions. So I say to people, get yourself a kit together, create a little kit when you're really having a good day, create a little kit of happiness. And when you're in that dire moment, go into that little treasure chest, open that up and start really going in there and understand that it's only a moment. The same way happiness goes, you know, passes and goes. Well, the same thing, the depression will pass and go. You know, the hatred, pass and go, rage. They're all emotions, they're not eternal. They just come and go. So if you can understand that and you can bear the storm of when you're in it and you have your little kit and you have your little, you know, thing that will break that pattern that you're in, I think that will help a lot. And at least enough to get you to through that moment. But you still need to, at the end of the day, if you are having suicidal thought, if you are having depression, if you are dealing with severe anxiety, you know, all these different things, you need to set up a sort of management plan. You need a support group. And when I say support group, I'm not talking about the support groups. I'm talking about a really good friend that you like. And if you're not the type of person to have friends, or people that even your friends, you're not comfortable talking to them about that, there are enough phone lines out there open to just talk to someone. Sometimes it's even better to talk to a stranger that doesn't have any preconceived triggers with you, you know, that can be very objective about the situation. So have that ready to go and have all those tools ready to go and journal, talk about it with yourself, within yourself. I tell people you got to befriend yourself first before you even try to be a friend to anyone or have friends to you. You have to know who you are. You have to befriend who you are. You have to make friends with your own person. And to do that, you have to cultivate an inner relationship with that. And that, I think, is easier done through meditation, building some mantras for yourself that you stick a little bit everywhere, journaling, putting all that stuff that you're feeling. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I'll write and write and write and write when I'm having a really dark day. And then 2 days later, I'll go back and I'll read that and I'm like, whoa, that was dark. But I'm laughing at it and I'm like, I'm so happy that I was able to pour it out of myself. And now I can go back and again, reiterate the fact that it's just a moment. Because I'm not like that right now. So it was just that moment. And if I can make it through those little moments by creating a management plan for myself, then I think the world is missing those tools. They're just conditioned to take a pill or to take a glass of wine or to take, you know, some drugs. And so, I mean, but again, it's up to you. You are in charge the same way that we are in charge of our health, you know, by supplements and by mental health, physical health, everything is connected. So we need to have that talk with ourselves and bring accountability back to ourselves and not on the outside. It's nobody's in charge of who we are and what we're going to be. We need to be accountable for that. And no matter how difficult life is, no matter what's going on the outside, I always say, You as a person, as an individual, as a spirit, have the choice on how you're going to bring that into your inner world. You can't manage this, but you can manage this. So it's up to you whether you want to or not.
It does seem like it's almost like choosing yourself, because what can happen as well is you start saying yes to things that you don't want to, and you stop having your own boundaries, and as soon as you let one boundary go, another crumbles, and by the time you know it, there's all these things going on and they're all upsetting you, but you've let all the boundaries go to such an extent that you just can't defend yourself against the outside world anymore. And it's such a slippery slope, and it can happen so fast. Have you got any advice for people that might want to work on that side of things?
Learn to say no. Learn to say no. I am bad with that. So I'm always like, everybody bombards me with things and comes to me and, can you do this? Can you help me with this? And I have so much trouble saying no. But putting yourself first, and again, that's a part of a conditioning, because we are born, raised, bred to be, conditioned to love others and to do for others, and to, you are supposed to be at the end of that bottom line of that list of things to do. And I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that it's not selfish to be and to put yourself at the top of your priority list, because the same way when you're in an airplane, they say, put your mask on first and then think of anything else that's going on. That's the thing. And I think that's based, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that that's based in our incredible need to be loved and liked and appreciated. And I think that the more you work on you and loving you and being happy with you, and that there's less and less and less of a void inside you that you need to fill by doing all that for everybody else, I think that you naturally become a little bit more apt to say, and you don't have to say no, you can say, well, and I give this trick to people. I say, instead of saying yes immediately to something, listen to the person, because they want to talk to you about their project and their thing, and you just listen, yes. And then when the ask comes, you say, you know what, I would love to, but let me check if I can. Let me check my schedule. Let me see what my plate holds right now. I'll get back to you in a day or two, okay? Now you've just taken yourself out of that immediate need to like, oh, yes, yes, yes. And now you're going to actually look at your stuff and go, oh, no, there's no way I can do that. And then you go, you know what, I checked things out. Unfortunately, right now, I can't. Maybe at a later date I could, but right now I'm like, just, right? So it just diffuses that moment where you're awkwardly, wanting like that little hush puppy going, yes, 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 right? That little tail's going. You just want to be loved, and you just want to be part of whatever they want to do, and you want to make them happy. And just that little trick has really brought me back my sanity, because I'm definitely one to say yes before they even like mention it. I'm usually the one that says, do you need help with that? Like, it sounds like a big project. You should, could I do this, or could I, you're right. So now I don't, I stable myself down. I listen to what they're saying. I absorb what they're saying. And then I say, it sounds fantastic, but I'm going to have to check things out, and I'll get back to you within a day or two, and we'll see. I would love to. Right. So now I've gotten myself out of that situation. And the minute I'm off the phone or off, the visual, I'm already saying to myself, there's no way I can fit that into anything I'm doing. Right. So now I have 2 days to figure out how I'm going to email them. But that's that's the only tip or trick that I can give that takes you out of that. But I think you have to realize that it's a huge need to be appreciated and loved, and to be included in whatever is going on. And I think the more that you build you and that limitless mindset, and you start getting involved in the stuff that you love to do, first you won't have time for other things. And number two, you're just going to get really good at protecting that time and that that me time. So that would be mental trick. I can't hear you anymore.
Sorry, I thought my mic was on.
Sorry.
I'll edit it. That's my fault. Would you like to tell us a bit about the album?
The album, yes, the album is pretty amazing. I've been writing my whole life songs, and it's always been more they were writing themselves, like they were writing me. I would wake up in the middle of the night. Usually, it's always at 3 o'clock in the morning for some crazy reason. And then I would just have a dictaphone next to my bed. I'd wake up, I'd sing the song. The song was already done. The lyrics were already done. I would just sing it in the dictaphone. The next day I would write it down. The song was done. That was the extent of my participation in the writing process of me writing songs for like 15, 20 years like that. I've written over 2,000 songs like that. And this, I wanted the whole experience of Suicide Kills to be completely out of my comfort zone, because I was asking people to be real with me and to be vulnerable and to read this with an open heart. And I wanted to feel that same discomfort. So I decided to do the album a completely different way. So what I did was I wrote the book, then I chose the chapters. Then I decided, okay, so this storyline is, let's say, sad, so then I would go on Pinterest and I would find images that spoke to the content that I had written for that chapter, the colors so I created sort of a mood board for the song. And then what I did was I went on YouTube and I started listening to different bits and pieces of tracks just to figure out the genre that I wanted, I didn't want to do anything that I had already done. I wanted to, it had to be different. And then I wrote the lyric, which was the last part, and I really wrote it. I really sat down and I kept reading the chapter and then writing, reading the chapter, then writing, which is something I've never done before. So it was really a very strange experience for me, but also transformative as well as a songwriter, because it taught me a very different approach to songwriting. And then because of the pandemic, I couldn't go into the studio. So I had to learn how to do that from home. So I had to get all this equipment and this production stuff and create my own studio inside my walls and record myself, which was another thing I never did and never wanted to do. It was just like very distracting, because usually I just go into the booth and I just lose myself in a song in the moment. But now I was producer, coach. I had to stop myself and say, okay, this isn't good enough. So you got to try it again and try it again and try it again. And a lot of the times where I've ever recorded into studio for my albums, I've been a one take kind of thing. I would go in, do the take. Max I've ever done for a take be 3 for a song. Now I was doing like 15, 16, 27. It was just like, it was painstaking. And then I cut it up and I started producing it and editing it. And it was just never ending. It became a monster. And then the person that I had hired first to do the album fell through, became mentally ill, which was kind of strange in all this, but became very unstable. And so I had to let that person go and get another team, and then it was a different feel, and I was just like, it was the most difficult album I've ever done in my life. Enough so that it often feels like it was the last one I'm ever going to do, because it was such a difficult experience. But then the moment that I sat back and I experienced it like a reader would. So I read the chapter and then I'd put the song and I'd read, and it was such a fulfilling thing because I was able to capture the tone of each chapter. And even, like even the song Suicide Kills, which is the album, the one that goes with the book title. If you listen to it, it has such a James Bond feel to it. I'm really proud of it. I partnered with this amazing artist that did this animation video for it. It just, I was just really proud. I was really, really proud of the entire product at the end because I felt like it really did have it had the opportunity to help. I really do believe that if people put themselves through it and really give themselves the time and the energy and the willingness to do it, it has the power to transform you in a certain way. And even though you're going through different chapters and you may or may not relate to the content, you will still kind of get an essence or a point of view that you may not have considered. And in that way, it will transform perhaps the way that you look at things. And I don't know if you know Wayne Dyer. He's one of my favorite men in the whole wide world. He was a writer, Wayne Dyer. He was a doctor as well, philosopher as well. And he always said, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I think that's such a powerful, powerful thing. And it's true. It really, we have the power to really change the way we look at things if we open up and stop being rigid in our thinking and in our way of looking at things. So the album, because it was such a different experience, that was transformational for me, because now if I ever do write another album, it'll be, now I can actually sit down and write the album, which I didn't think I could do before, because it never happened that way, right? So I didn't think I had that in me to do. So it was really cool. I hope people love it.
I'm sure they will, and you've got such a powerful message. I think it's absolutely amazing, the work that you're doing. We're coming up to the end of the interview. We've gone way over time, but we've needed the time to get through these subjects properly. Would you like to give people an indication of where they can find you on the internet?
Absolutely. You can go to www.claudewalters.ca, and you'll find the albums, you'll find the book, you'll find the course. There's also a landing page that combines the thing into that transformational trifecta experience. And so you can buy it you can buy them individually. You can get them as a package as well. I suggest you do the package because I want you to do the work and really get the most out of it, but you can enjoy it any way that you want.
And all this will be linked down below so that you can click straight through to all these amazing resources. And it has been an absolute pleasure having you on today. Thank you so much. You've brightened my day, and it's been a fantastic discussion. Thank you.
You've been wonderful too. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your listeners. And I'm really happy that we had this conversation.
You've been watching on YouTube or listening on an audio platform to the Kunua podcast. If you like what you're hearing, then don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any amazing content, and don't forget to leave us a review.
Kunua coaching.